So with that in mind, I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with Alyssa, and she can give her update. Thanks, Alyssa.
Okay, listen, I'll share my screen right now.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Matt.
Sure.
All right. Well, my name is Alyssa Wingenfield. I'm an engineer with McClure Company. Appreciate you having me here tonight. I'm here to deliver what's called a measurement and verification report for your recent energy project. So my presentations are informal, so if you have questions throughout, please let me know. And thanks again for having me. Just to give you a quick snapshot of the energy project history that you have with McClure, we did our first project for the district back in 2018, and those phases, we're going to call them phase 1 and 2, were completed over the summer of 2018. And we'll go over those energy conservation measures or projects in a second. We also did what we're calling a third phase, and that year's wrong there. It says 2018, but it was really in 2019 summer where we did the high school science classroom renovation. So we don't have the results of that third phase tonight, but we will tonight talk about phases 1 and 2. So what is a measurement and verification report? It is a report that quantifies the energy savings that have impacted from our project. So what we really look at is that energy units saved. So how much natural gas, oil is saved, how much electricity was saved. And what we're comparing is our predicted energy savings versus actual. So how do we do that? If you want to go to the next slide. We took a look at the 8 energy conservation measures we did for you. And we looked at it over what we're going to call the construction period of basically June of 2018 through May of 2019. Now, we know the heavy of the construction portion was really from June through August, but we showed as the entire year because we're still tweaking some of the controls of the HVAC equipment behind the scenes. So tonight's report is really just bringing together what we saw in that construction years, which usually is about half of the energy savings that we'll plan to see in year 1. We use the construction year to kind of guide us to say if we're on target and if we're getting the savings we expect to see. So to measure the savings, we use what's called option A, which is a sampling of all the energy conservation measures. We do short-term metering. We look at our energy calculations and what we stipulated as factors that we expect to see and compare what is realized versus what we modeled. And if you look, each one of the energy conservation measures in the top right, you'll see what the savings were compared to the guarantee. So we were over on a lot of them. The only one we were under the savings were the high school roofing upgrades, and we think that was due to a square footage error on our end. But still fairly close to what was projected. So the guaranteed energy savings, once we convert kilowatt hours of electricity and your fuels to dollars based on your rates in the contract, which were in 2018 representative of what you were paying, we compare those. We thought you'd save about $64,500 and $2,000 in the first year. When we measured it, you actually saved more than that. You saved $86,565 for an excess savings of $22,063. So this is great news. This is exactly what we expected to see. To be honest with you, we probably guarantee about 80% of what we calculate. So we're right there where we expect to be. Your next report is when we're on the hook for the savings. Those savings will be, again, about twice what you show here. So I show $64,000 guaranteed during the construction year. I think we guaranteed about $132,000 in year 1. So we'll be back about this time next year to deliver that report. So that was a lot of information I just threw at you. I'll push pause and answer any questions your team might have.
I don't know if it's just me, Matt and Alyssa. I'm having trouble reading those numbers, and I don't know if there's a way to increase that on my screen or not. If not, perhaps Matt, you could copy those and send them out in a PDF or something like that, so we could take a look at them. That's a little bigger, but maybe it's just old me. That's better. That's now readable. Yeah.
Mr. Green, in this Friday's update, I will send this PowerPoint presentation, but also the kind of approximately, I think, about a 30-page full report. If you really want to delve into it, you will have all that as an attachment in this weekend's board report.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Alyssa at this point in time? If not, we thank you very much for your presentation and look forward to you helping us more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Thank you, Matt. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you. You as well, Alyssa.
Okay, next we have the request from Slater Borough Council. I don't know if you're going to do that, Matt, or Greg, Matt.
Sure, I'll do that one, Mr. Green. So I shared, I don't know, maybe a week or two in the board report that I was contacted by one of the Slatington Borough Council members with an inquiry of if the school board would be interested in allowing Slatington Borough to use the field across the street from the Northern Lehigh Middle School athletic field. So what we use is our middle school field, hockey field, the fenced in area. They had inquired if we would be interested in donating that field or part of that field across the street to the borough, so the borough could construct a true dog park for the community. And I told him I did not know, but I would take it to the board and then you know, kind of first step, take it to this committee for feedback to see if anybody was interested in that. Administratively, we kicked around the idea of it is a direction that the board would want to go, that I don't know that we would recommend that we would want to donate that land and give it up. And there's actually a lot of you know, legal transfers that would need to occur there. But potentially, if the board was interested in it, to maybe, you know, see if the borough would be interested in having some sort of agreement where we lease that land to them, kind of like for $1 a year, right? Sometimes you see those type of arrangements, and then they would be responsible to put up. We would give them permission to put up fencing, any signage, anything like that. So the community could have a true dog park. But if at any point we need that land for anything, you know, we would have to go back to them and say, okay, you know, we need to take back over control of this here and repurpose it for something else. I had a number of conversations with Mr. Durr about it. That land is not really utilized for anything. And we own, I think, probably about 10 yards or so into the tree line in the back edge of that property. You know, other than us maintaining it as far as mowing the lawn, it's just kind of there. You know, so I'm kind of bringing it up to this committee for further discussion, and then I'll take any direction and report back to. There was Mr. Ruff, who I believe is the vice president of the Slatington Borough Council.
Any thoughts, board members? I would say, Matt, that, and I'm going back quite a few years, there was a time when the district, when we were in dire financial straits, had considered selling that piece of land. And I if my memory's correct, about half of it is too narrow to really build on and doesn't have much value. But the first part of it, I thought was big enough that it was a viable building lot and did have some value. That was some years ago. I would assume it still would, because there was enough distance there before the drop off that someone could have, you know, put a structure, building, home, whatever on there. So I guess with that in mind, I don't know if I want to just outright give it to them. I guess I could be convinced to lease it to them, but I certainly don't think I would want to give it outright to them. That's my feeling. So anyone else, please chime in. Gary, Donna, Bob.
This is Gary. I agree with you, Matt. And bottom line is, if we do anything, I like the idea of leasing it for $1 for an uncertain amount of years, with the caveat that if at any time the district would need that for any purpose, we would take it back over. That I think would have to be part of the agreement for me to agree to.
I'm just concerned about the district property and the folks who would be parking there or going around there, any liability we would have or any damage or anything to district property. That's just something I mentioned.
Rhonda, go ahead, Rhonda. You read my mind.
We did discuss this with our insurance broker, and what he said is that even in a leasing situation, the borough would have to list us as additionally insured on their insurance policy, so that if anything would happen while it was under their control, that we would be covered under their insurance policy. The other concern that we brought up was, what if a dog bites somebody or two dogs fight or whatever? The answer that we got is that onus is on the dog's owner. So if a dog bites someone else, it's on the dog's owner's insurance, not ours or the borough's.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with everybody else. I don't mind leasing it. I wouldn't want to give it away as long as we're covered, insurance wise and legally. I'm okay with that.
Then what I'm hearing is that this committee would be comfortable with me reaching back out to them and saying, we can continue this conversation, but we kind of need to now get down into the weeds and work out exactly what that agreement would look like. Everything from property management to insurance to parking. We did talk about parking. That's one of the first conversations we had, Mrs. Culp. The idea that we do not want to donate the land or sell the land, but we're willing to lease the land at a very, very, very generous rate. I think that would be a nice give back to our community. But I would also ask the board's permission then that, kind of once we put a framework together, that I could go back to our solicitor and say, please put eyes on this and advise us of any potential pitfalls before we would go into any sort of formal agreement.
I agree with that, Matt. I do. The only concern I have about parking is because I'm still concerned a little bit about the parking along the fields. I thought we weren't going to allow parking on the grass area, and I've go by there a couple of times, and there's parking back on the grass areas, and it's being chewed up by cars, and certainly when it's raining, it becomes muddy and so forth. That would be the same concern I would have about cars parking along our field there on the grass area. I would hope the borough then would restrict that in their own right and monitor it, since it is a highway or a borough street.
Absolutely. And I think that would have to be part of those very initial conversations about, you need to come to us with a plan for parking control.
Yeah, I agree, because that would just keep tearing up our grass areas again, and I'm not happy about them parking again on the field side of Bldg Lane there. But again, now we're adding another area of our school grassy area that could be torn up by cars parking.
I think what I'm hearing, Matt, is the board is okay with moving forward, but they're looking for some safeguards in there, if I'm not correct. Parking, policing, some of those type things that would have to be in there. Of course, insurance protection. So is that what we're hearing? Pretty much. I see Donna shaking her head. I think Bob. Yeah. Okay. I think that's where we're at, Matt. So.
Okay. Thank you for that direction, and I'll move forward with that conversation.
And you can get back for us. Next, we have seal coating. I guess we're going to Greg for that. We have some bids, I assume.
Yes, correct. Seal coating of the Peters Elementary parking lot and the stadium lot, which would include the area around the field house inside the stadium as well. This is a project that has been on the long-range maintenance plan for a while. We postponed it last year due to COVID, and this year we're looking to move forward with the project. The two amounts are there. for Peters Elementary and Slating, or Peters Elementary and the stadium. Looking for an agenda item for approval to go on the board meeting for Monday night. And the funds for this project would be paid out of my current this year's school budget. So I'll open it up to any questions, comments.
Anyone have a problem with that?
No, I don't have a problem. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good idea that we keep and maintaining sealing or whatever else needs so that we don't get ourselves to a position where it's going to be really costly to do a repair at some point. So I'm in favor of it, Matt.
So I would say put it on the agenda, Greg.
All right, we will do that.
Go ahead. You got the ball. Go ahead.
The next agenda item is just an update on the Peters Elementary playground equipment. I'm currently working with 3 vendors, and hopefully by next board meeting, we'll have some idea of the type of equipment we're looking for and some numbers. And this project would be paid for out of one of the ESSER's grants. So more to come on that. The next agenda item is Halo machines and the Halo mist solution, which goes in the machines. Recently, there's been some cases, as we know, of COVID at some buildings. And fortunately, they've pretty much been concentrated to one building at a time. And these machines they need to run maybe 40 minutes in the room, but then you cannot enter the room for another 3 hours after the treatment. So what we're running into is having enough machines to make sure we get the task completed in one night. When we end up fogging 3 or 4 rooms, 5 rooms, sometimes one night, we're pulling all of our machines from the other buildings and concentrating them into one building. And we're looking for the board's approval to move forward and purchase 5 more Halo machines and solution out of one of the ESSER grants. The grant requirement is if it's over $21,000 that it would need to go out to formal bidding. So I am looking for the board's approval to move forward and do some formal bidding to purchase 5 more Halo machines and solution. So I'll open it up to any questions.
What are your thoughts on the cost, Greg? I don't remember anymore what the machines ran and the solution.
It probably will be somewhere around $48,000.
For 5 machines.
5 machines, and I believe that's 20 cases of solution. And that's the same purchase that we made initially.
Okay. Would there be any merit in getting 2 now and 2 later or something to move forward quicker without the bidding process? Or I'm just throwing that out in case there's, kind of an emergency situation until you go out and bid and we have another meeting. Does that delay the process? I don't know.
I believe under the bidding guidelines, we would be flagged on that because the auditors would pick up that that's exactly what we were trying to do to circumvent the process. And the reason I'm saying that is because we actually looked into that. So.
Yeah, the whole thing is, Matt, is if it's all paid underneath the same ESSER's grant, which it would be, the auditors will pull and say, how much money did you give to this vendor? Not that you purchased this and this. It's a vendor cost. So we have to be under 21,000 that we give to any one vendor.
Okay, so you're coming from the same perspective I have, and you already asked that question. It won't work. So, oh well.
My question is, if we order 5, do we get some kind of a discount because we're ordering a larger amount?
We do get the last purchase that we made, and I'm sure the vendor that we purchased from before gave us a school discount. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there is a discount for school districts. But We would need to do the formal bidding, in the Times News and collect bids that way. And then we can assess them at that time. And then there would be another agenda item to approve the purchase on the June board agenda.
Understand. And these, when we looked at these machines, we looked at it also that it will serve a great purpose to us in the future, with any kind of situation, not only the COVID. Am I correct?
Correct. These are effective for a lot of various illnesses, not just COVID. This is the viruses or the flus that come around every winter. A lot of use of these in the weight rooms and the wrestling rooms for other ringworm and those type of infections. So it's something that could be used not just for COVID, for many different viruses.
So it would definitely be a good long-term purchase that we would have those in our building. The other thing is, I think going to a few more makes a lot of sense to me, only because we've been lucky right now. As you said, we've been kind of with a building, but if we ever get to a point where we have a multi-building and we don't have the equipment to do things, we may not be able to open the next morning. And to me, that would be more. That would not be good. I would not think so anyway. So I'm in favor of the purchase.
Hey, Greg, I just have a couple questions. So the 20 cases of solution, how long does that last? I know that's what we were talking about before.
If I remember correctly, I believe it was about 4 hours of use out of a gallon.
So I didn't know how many times a year we'd have to purchase the case, if you will.
Well, it would all depend on how often we use it. I'm going to say, for the most part, for this cubic feet that are in our classrooms, we probably run on an average of about 30 minutes per room. And so that's, I think, around 6 classrooms out of a gallon. It all depends on the size of the room. So the bigger the room, the longer it has to run.
Okay. How much is left in that ESSERS grant that you're talking about using for this?
I'm gonna have to let Sherry answer that one.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, that's part of, we have money in our ESSERS 2, which was almost like $1.4 million, I believe. There is still lots of money left in that, and that's where we tagged it for. And then we also still have that other ESSERS 3, which is a little, almost $3 million in that one. But a percentage of that, 20% of that has to be used for the lost learning programs for the summer. So like $589,000 of that will go to lost learning, but there's plenty of money to cover this right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bob, you okay?
And Sherry, we didn't have any of that money earmarked for something else specific. Like, we're not cutting something else out that we wanted to use it for. I'm looking at the technology side as well. Just to make sure that it's there. That's what I'm asking. And looking at our long range plans.
Yeah, no, this was something that we did put in there to pay out of this grant because we knew we needed more of these machines. And there is also the big technology purchase of the Bldg server is also included in there and stuff. So there is, we're also looking at technology and stuff along with that money as well.
So getting
I'm good.
Sorry, so getting this equipment, it will be after, like, pretty much the end of the school year or after the kids leave?
Till we complete the formal bidding process, the purchase would not be approved until June board meeting. So therefore, yes, we would not receive the equipment till after the board meeting.
But please remember that after the board meeting, the third week in June, every single one of our buildings will be hosting programs this summer because of our summer learning academies, STEAM camp, band camp. Every building will be occupied.
Okay, thank you.
You're You're welcome.
So I think we're okay on it?
Okay. There'll be an agenda item to allow me to go out and request proposals. The next item's fuel bids. They were to be received last Friday. However, the bid deadline was extended until this Friday. So May 7th, this Friday, we'll have bid results, and we will update you in the slate as well as at the next Buildings and Grounds meeting. Any questions on fuel bids? Hearing none, I'll move on to the next agenda item. It's an update on HVAC technician and summer workers. We received a lot of applications with qualified HVAC guys who have their refrigerant licenses, and we're reviewing those as early as prior to the meeting, and we'll be working on setting up interviews for next week. And summer workers, the same thing. I believe we have 7 applicants, and we will be setting up interviews for those 7 students as well next week. Any questions on HVAC summer worker applications?
You won't have the HVAC nomination on Monday, though. Is that correct? You will or you will not?
They will be.
You will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the person to hire will not be. The contract agreement for us allowing us to do it, the MOU, is on Monday evening.
Okay.
So we will be conducting interviews next week, and hopefully be able to select a candidate, and that person would be on the June board meeting for a hire. But we do have everything in place to hire an HVAC technician.
And with the board's permission, we would like to start them as soon as we can, like we have in the past, so that we can get that person working, because Greg's going to need them for, cutting grass and all that other kind of stuff. We're really short help. So 2-second plug.
I'm sorry. That was my question, Chair. You're going to have on to hire a person at X number of dollars or something to that effect on the agenda?
We weren't going to actually put that board motion on. The motion is on to hire a skilled person. And then the advertisement has already gone out. So that's the advertised rate is, I believe, $30 an hour. I think it was. I think that's the advertised rate. It's either 30 or 31. Give me 2 seconds and I'll look it up. But yeah, we won't have anybody to put on, but the MOU will be on allowing us to hire this person prior to that contract and adding that language.
But my question is, are you looking to the board to authorize you to hire a person of your choice? I'm trying to throw that to you, so in case you want to actually bring the person on, you don't have to wait till the next board meeting.
Well, yeah, we can. Board policy for hiring people does give us, the right with board permission that they know about it to hire, so that the continuity of education and the functioning of the district can continue. So, if you want a blanket motion, if Matt's in favor of that, I would be okay with doing that, and then bringing the name back later with who the actual person is that we hired.
We can put it on as a placeholder with all the numbers, board approval to hire, and we'll just have a placeholder there for the name, and then bring it back with the name later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way you get them started before next month's meeting. Yeah. You okay with that, Bob, Donna, Gary?
Yeah, I'm fine. I heard bits and parts. My internet is going in and out, so I was trying to dial in as well. But yeah, I got the gist of it. We're good.
Okay. All right, so you go ahead with that, Greg, Sherry. I think we're okay with that.
Okay, 2-second plug, if nobody minds. Those summer workers that we have, we are in need of a person to supervise them. So if any of you retired people know somebody who might be retired and looking for a part-time summer job, we are putting it out in the newspaper and stuff again, but we're hoping to find a supervisor. So if you can put the word out there, if you know anybody that might be looking, tell them to please apply.
The next agenda item is the transportation RFP. We talked about it at last Buildings and Grounds meeting. We followed up in the slate recently, and we have been in touch with the King Spry attorneys, and they reviewed the original RFP and Brandywine's proposal that they submitted, and King Spry is recommending that we accept the 5-year proposal, but we add an addendum to the agreement, which would state that in the event that this 5-year agreement is legally challenged, that it would revert back to a 1-year proposal. And at that point, we would need to write a new RFP for a 5-year proposal. The reason for the addendum is we originally advertised it only as a one-year contract. However, if we add this addendum, the King Spry attorneys feel that we should be covered fully, and they are recommending that we move forward with the 5-year proposal. Any questions on transportation or how the addendum, how we're handling it?
As long as our solicitor doesn't see any problems with that, I do not. I think it's a good way to go, and we're happy with the service that we're getting. So yeah, go with it.
All right. Monday evening there'll be.
Anybody has any objection? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Monday evening there'll be a board agenda to approve the 5-year proposal. The last agenda item is an item that we added on today, event tents. We have talked at numerous meetings in-house about how we can get an outdoor setting for educational purposes. There are a lot of other uses for an event tent. The funds for the tent, which we're looking to purchase 2, and I think Matt's going to present there kind of an idea of what we're looking at. This would be paid for out of an ESSER's grant. And again, it is one of those items that if it's over $21,000, that it would require formal bidding. So I am looking for board's permission to allow me to do formal bidding for 2 event tents similar to the one you see there in the picture. We're looking for a nice tent that has windows down the side and some protection from the elements without getting into lighting and all that kind of thing. So the windows there would let the light in, and it would give us an outdoor venue to maybe outdoor classrooms or events. Probably there are lots of things that I'm not thinking of right now that the tent could be used for, but I'll open it up to questions.
Where would we be putting them?
So we're looking for one to go in the courtyard of the middle school on the concrete pad that's right outside the annex area. That's kind of an ideal spot for one that would create it. It's sheltered inside the courtyard area, but it would make a great addition to the courtyard for expand the uses for that outdoor space. The second one, probably leaning towards maybe Slatington at this time. Seems like that might be the best location for the second one. And that one would be on the grass somewhere.
So would you be spreading out kids in here? I mean, or
So that's exactly why, Mrs. Culp. One of it is, that they're continuing to recommend, even though that they're lessening restrictions, and I'm sure all of you saw that come May 31st, they're targeting to remove all restrictions except universal masking, but they're still recommending, social distance as much as possible, fresh air as much as possible. So for example, right now in our middle school cafeteria, we have students seated in the cafeteria area, in the annex area, and down the hallway, and at certain points in the library during lunch periods. What we would like to be able to do going into the fall is to put this up where, if you're familiar with the annex, where the holiday dinner used to be, right, when we used to be allowed to do that, that back wall slides open. We'd like to put tables out on the concrete under the tent and have students to be able to eat out there in a secure area, not be in the hallways, not be in the library, but then also be able to use that courtyard. That's a beautiful courtyard. It's huge. We need to clean it up. That's going to be one of the expectations for the summer workers, is to kind of, tidy up that courtyard and then also use it as an outdoor secure instructional area with cover. Similarly, the same thing up here at Slatington. We're also looking at, ways that we can continue to have students spread out, be outside more, because even though things are getting better, we know that we need to continue to practice precautions. And again, this would fit squarely within ESSER funding.
I've used some of these tents or different things before with the network. So you would be looking to put some lighting and other things in there, correct?
Not necessarily. That's why we're looking for the ones with the panels on the side that have the like the vinyl windows built in.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't necessarily want to run any sort of permanent lighting or anything like that. That would be used during daylight hours. I guess if we needed to, if we wanted to have some sort of evening event under one of the tents, we could bring out temporary lighting. But I don't, our goal is to not have to do it during school day hours.
Okay, because it's not always the best. Like you don't get as much light as you think you're going to get from the sides. That's my only point. So, okay.
I think our guidelines also have to be that it has to be for our own school events and not public.
Oh yeah. These are the type of tents that, once they're installed, and we would have the professionals install them. It's not something you take up and down for each event. Okay, so they're up. They're up and ready for use.
And you said one of them will be on a grass area? So
We're hoping to have one over near, over here by Slatington.
Okay, I'm just wondering how that's gonna work with the constant use of it, if you will, on the grass. That's all. So you wouldn't be able to use this for the summer then, because it says lead time is 3 months?
Yeah, that's these are extremely hard to come by now. Every restaurant wants one. Some other schools have already started to put them up. So this is our lead time. And actually this one here is actually down at the vineyard down off of Shantz Road.
Vinecrest.
Vinecrest, thank you. So if any of you want to go see what it actually looks like, it's only about a 25-30 minute drive from here. And they are hard to come by now. So, maybe by summer programming, Mrs. Culp, but definitely by the fall.
I think one place that has a similar one that's probably closer is the Trivet there off of Tillman Street.
Mm.
And 309.
Yes.
I'm okay with it. Is Bob back? I know you had left the meeting, Bob. Any thoughts?
Yeah, my only concern about having it out in Slatington is security. It's going to be pretty accessible to the public and kids and who knows what. I mean, of course, the one in the courtyard is fine. That's my only concern. And then it being on a grassy area, grass is going to die. Now you have mud. I don't know. I mean, I see the purpose in it. I absolutely do. Those are just my concerns.
I see the value to it too, Matt. So I think I don't have a problem either.
So I think we're a go to advertise at this point.
Okay, there will be an agenda item on Monday evening's board agenda to allow me to go out and solicit an RFP for 2 tents.
Okay.
That concludes my agenda items for this evening. Anybody have any other questions on anything?
No. If not, Mr. Hill.
All right, good evening, everybody. I am going to share my screen. Okay. I am going to talk about the Blade Center replacement and cover a little bit about what the Blade Center is. Okay, the Blade Center, what the Blade Center is, first of all, it's best described as the brain of our network. What the Blade Center does is it hosts all of our virtual servers and our file storage for the district. Some of the things that we have set up on the, of course, it's telling me I have a committee meeting going on right now, smart computer. So some of the things that the Blade Center does is we have IT management servers on there. We have our software deployment servers on there. We have Wi-Fi controllers. That's our wireless throughout the entire district, our controllers that run the Wi-Fi network. Firewall management server. We have a server that manages our firewall on there. DHCP servers, DNS servers. Those are 2 servers that have to do with the networking part of it. We have staff file servers. We have student file servers. We have our VPN access on the Blade Center. That's where people, teachers can remote in from home to get their files and things like that for remote learning. We have our security camera servers on there for all the buildings. We have the door access system. When you come in to use your fob, all that's controlled through a server on there. There's an HVAC management server on there. We run the cafeteria point of sale system from the Blade Center. And then finally, we have our authentication or login servers, okay? So when students log in, even though we use a lot of the Google products, actually what it does is that it's actually tied into our Active Directory server. And the students actually use that to log in, and also our staff members also use that to log in. So that's kind of the importance of the Blade Center. Pretty much is the brain of the entire network. It really runs the entire operation. A little bit of history about the Blade Center. It was originally installed in the 2011-12 school year. It was installed to replace, we had a series of standalone servers, and at that time, Stephen told me most of them were Novell servers, which is pretty common back in the early 2000s. A lot of school districts ran Novell. I was familiar with Novell. We ran those probably till about 2004, so it replaced the old Novell servers. The Blade Center was partially updated in 2015 and also in 2017. During the updates, there was storage updates. We installed an MSA 1040 storage array network, it's called. We also, that was in 2015. In 2017, the server blades, that's the actual server part, were replaced. And in 2017, we also installed a MSA 2040 storage area network too. Last year, actually earlier this year, I should say, for the school year, in October of 2020, we replaced the uninterruptible power supplies in the server. That part of it will still remain. We are not going to change the UPSs. The UPSs that we purchased are 208 volt UPSs, and that could still be used for this upgrade we're talking about. So those will not be changed, and we just replaced those again in October of 2020. The blade chassis, the server blades, and the two storage area networks that I talked about, the 1040 and the 2040, the support for those will be, they're reaching the end of life and their support in the fall of 2021. So this upcoming fall, they're no longer going to be supported. We can still get spare parts for those. They're going, HP has it on their website that spare parts are still available. I looked up all those units. We can get spare parts till at least 2023. So there are still spare parts available. The issue that we run into is that the firmware and software updates are no longer available after that 2021 time frame. And we actually ran into a problem the last time we did our updates. We did our updates in January last year. It was January of 2020. We did our updates, and we actually ran into an issue where the blade chassis is even older. That hasn't been replaced at all. And we ran into an issue there where we can't update our VMware software any further because the other firmwares have to be to a certain point in order to update it. So we started running into that issue last year. And that's what I have here in the next bullet item. We were unable to update our VMware versions due to the firmware software constraints. So we can still operate the blades and it's still operating fine, everything like that. The problem we're running into now is we can't update our VMware anymore. And then that sets you up down the road where once you get a couple levels behind, your software updates usually have security updates and things like that. And so then you start falling behind in some other areas. So again, that was in January of 2020. And at that time, I wrote in one of the board updates, I think it was right at the end of January, that we were going to have to start looking to replace some of these components. At that time, we didn't know if we were going to do everything all at one time or maybe do it piecemeal. But at that time, Steve and I actually started looking into this a little further and started to gather a plan together to replace the Blade Center or maybe do it piecemeal. So the replacement plan. Right now, our old Blade Center. Right now we have a big rack out down in our server room. It's a rack or cabinet, you might want to call it, and our UPSs. Those are fine. Those will work with the new equipment. We have no problem with that. So that all that equipment can stay, and we have no need to replace it. On the right, I have the new plan. We have a blade chassis, and we have 3 BL460. They're Gen 9 blades. That's actually our blade servers. Those would be replaced with 3 DL360 Gen 10 rack servers. So it's a little bit of a different type of a server. We would actually be getting rid of what we call the chassis part, and it would just be 3 rack servers. So that's what would replace the blades. Next, we have our 3-part 8200. That's our VM storage. That's for our virtual storage. We would replace that with a Nimble HF 21 terabyte VM storage. Then we have the MSA 1040 and MSA 2040. That's our storage area networks. We would replace those again, and those are different model numbers because one was done earlier than the other, so they're actually a little bit different. They're the same, but they're different model numbers because they were put in at different times. We would replace both of those with an MSA 2060, and that has about 60 terabytes of storage, RAID 6. RAID 6 is, that's kind of, it duplicates the storage. So in case you ever have a hard drive go down in one of those arrays, it fails safe over. That's what the RAID 6 is. So that would be about 60 terabytes of data that we could store on there. The other thing that we would replace is the fiber channel switches. The fiber channel switches are actually still original from the original installation. Those were never touched. And again, that's where the fiber channel switches is where we run into some firmware issues. And those will be replaced with 2 Mellanox 2010M switches. And really what the switches do is that connects your blade server to your storage area network. And then it also connects all of that equipment to what we call our core switch to our network. So that's what the fiber channel switches do. So we would replace that as well. Currently, right now, too, with our old system, we are paying an annual support contract for maintenance on that. When I say maintenance, it's really for we have a support service where if something goes down, we can have it replaced by the next day service. For instance, when I first started here, literally the first week I started working here, our 3-part, we had a problem over that weekend. It was the first weekend I actually started here, and Stephen came in and worked on a problem, and we had it replaced by Monday morning. Everything went fine, so we had no problems. Plus, with the Blade Center, you have a lot of duplication there, so we were able to run. Even though some of that went down, we were actually able to run. But we paid a support contract, so that next day when we came in that Monday morning, we had a gentleman here. I think he actually came from New Jersey, had the part for us, and we were able to get that replaced, and we had no problem. So right now we're paying an annual support contract on all that equipment. With the proposal of the new Blade Center, we worked in a 5-year support plan with that. That's already included in the price. So that would drop that part of the payment that we have right now. So what would this cost to replace it? Okay, again, we had talked before, Steve and I talked about, prior to this, we had talked about, we were looking at maybe just changing the MSA, some of the older parts that we had to update. We were looking at possibly just putting those in, and then maybe next year doing a little more. And we were looking at trying to get everything replaced by 2023 when we're not guaranteed to get parts anymore. But if we were to do it now, just a one-time cost, we have a PEPM quote from Integra, and a PEPM quote, that is a consortium pricing. So actually for the ESSER grants, they do accept PEPM quotes because that's consortium pricing for technology products. So with a PEPM quote, the total cost comes out to $194,559.86. In that price, it includes installation. The estimated life expectancy out of something like this, I would estimate 6 to 8 year life expectancy. Typically that's what you would get out of a piece of equipment like this with all the parts. Sometimes you can extend that out as we did last time. Sometimes you can, just exchange maybe your storage area networks and get a couple more years of life out of it. But I would estimate you're looking at 6 to 8 year life expectancy out of a piece of equipment like this. And also, again, as I said, we would save on the annual support cost over 5 years. So that'll help us out. Again, the Blade Center is really required for remote learning and instruction. It's used for all of our faculty, staff to log in, all of our students to log in. So it does, we can use the ESSER funds for this project. And I really think this would be a good use of those funds. I think it'd be good. It's good for the students, obviously. And I think in the long run, this is something that's good for the taxpayers and our district in the long term, because this is something that we were going to start looking on spending money on anyway over the next few years, whether we did a piecemeal or all at one shot. This is something now that I think we can work into the ESSER grant. It falls under all the requirements, and we can then use that money to get this in sooner rather than later. So I will leave it at that. I will take any questions.
Anyone have a problem with airing proceeding?
Well, if I didn't think he was speaking French to me the entire time, no. Eric, if you think we need it, I trust you. I'm all for it. I wouldn't know any different. So if you're that sincere about it, I do appreciate explanation. I tried to follow, but I'm all for it.
I'll donate the 86 cents if it helps.
And this will take care of all the learning support that Mr. Kern wants to get for our teachers. We can use that on there. Is that correct?
It helps. Yeah, this is this is the first step. You need this to have all the other pieces fall in place. So yeah, this is kind of like the infrastructure you need to have everything else fall in place. Exactly. Yes.
Eric, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, you just got Bob's vote. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do it. I really do. I really think that this will set our department up for quite a few years. We'll be in really good shape. We'll have a good a good solid foundation here to work off of. And again, I really think that in the long run, this also helps the taxpayers, which I think is a win-win for our school districts and our taxpayers. And I think we all benefit from this project. So yeah, I do think it's a good project. So I appreciate everybody agreeing.
Eric, I'm going to hire you to come up to my house and fix my internet connection. I've been working with Blue Ridge. I cannot fix this. It's in and out all night. I don't know what's going on. I got to figure this out, but I appreciate your time.
Okay.
I can have my 5-year-old niece stop by, Bob, if you want. She'll be able to help you. So Donna and Gary, I assume are okay, Eric. So I haven't heard any objection. So
No, I'm in favor, Matt. You're okay.
I thought so. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'll move on to the next item then. The next thing is some charging stations and chargers. What we're looking to do, again, this would be from the ESSER funds. What we're looking to do is to get some charging stations for Peters Elementary, because Peters Elementary doesn't have many. They have a few charging stations out there, but they had some older carts out there as well. So we're looking to get some what they call a JAR Systems charging station. We have these at Slatington Elementary already. So what we're looking to do is get 55 more of these charging stations for Peters Elementary. Slatington Elementary, we get a few of these. There's some over there where we identified where they could use a few more. And then also for the middle school, because we do not have these at the middle school. These would be primarily for the Chromebooks. And each charging station can charge up to 16. They can fit 16 Chromebooks in each one. The reason we're really looking at this is with the way the learning was this year. When we start next year, we're all kind of hoping and assuming that we're going to be sitting in the classroom, and that a lot of the elementary level, especially at Peters on up, Peters and Slatington, is that they'll have these Chromebooks sitting in these charging stations most of the time. But we still don't know if we're going to have intermittent school closures. So what we're looking at is we're looking for charging stations so that if we're in, the students can have them sitting in their classrooms and they don't necessarily have to take them back and forth home. But we want to also be able to, if we do close, that they can take these out, put them in their laptop bags, and then take the devices home with them. So the charging stations would be really valuable. This year we did not have charging stations out there. They were just kind of carrying them back and forth with their bags. So that's what the charging stations are for. And in addition to the charging stations, we're also looking for Chromebook chargers. Now, the chargers that we're looking at, we're looking for a lot of them. This would be 1,200. The reason that is that would cover us from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, and we would also have some extras. These would be 45-watt USB-C chargers. They can be used for all of our Chromebooks that we use at the middle school, and all the new Chromebooks that we're purchasing now all use USB-C. And even our laptops, you can use these USB-C chargers on. It's really becoming the universal charger now. Really just about every device that's made now, all the computers and laptops are using the USB-C chargers. It's a little pricey, but again, the reason I think these are really necessary is really for the situation where if we have students in school and then they have to go out of school for a week, if we have to do any type of closure, or we have any type of situation where we have to close the buildings, then we don't have to. If you ever looked at any of these charging stations, it's kind of difficult to pull the chargers in and out of these all the time. So that way we would have a set in school, we would have a set that the students could take home, and it would be good for the distance learning that the students have been doing. So again, this is something that that we could use the ESSER funds for, and I'm just asking if anybody has any questions or if we have support to go ahead and order this equipment.
So how would this replace the regular laptop cord you guys have for them to charge Chromebooks?
Yeah, it's not going to replace them. It's in addition to. So what we would do is, especially for the kindergarten all the way up through 8th grade, what we would do is have the charger. We would have a charger sitting in a classroom in the charging station. So when the students could just leave them there. But then if we get in the issue where they have to, let's say we have to close school again for a couple days or a week, the students would have another charger already in their laptop case. So that way we don't have to rip all the charging stations apart all the time and take the chargers out, because that's a big project when you're talking about thousands of devices. So what we're looking to do is actually have a second set of chargers, so we don't have to go through that process of ripping them out. And then that way the students would have a nice safe place to keep the Chromebooks when they're in school. And if they're in school for hopefully for an extended period of time, they can leave them there. Plus these also, the charging stations also have locks on them, but really the Chromebook chargers are to have an extra set. So they have one to go home and they have one to stay at school.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand what we're spending all the ESSER money on, and making sure it's something that we want, and I mean need versus want. That's my only concern.
Yeah, it did seem a little redundant to me to be buying extra chargers, but I don't fully understand it either, I guess, like Bob. But you're saying it's a big process to tear the books apart or the charging stations apart, or it just seems like they have a charger in their case. Why can't they use that in school instead of a charging station? I'm not clear on that.
Well, they can, but the problem is if they bring their Chromebook to school and they have their charger in their laptop, there's no, like, you really have nowhere in the room to plug in 20 chargers. They're kind of like you have these cases where you keep your where you typically would keep your Chromebooks in. So typically when we're in school, this isn't a problem because also at the elementary, we always left the devices in school. So it was never an issue before. But now that we don't leave the devices in school all the time, the students are taking them back and forth. What happens is there's no easy way to get those chargers in and out quickly. Okay, they don't come out. Like a student can't just go up and pull the charger out. They're difficult to get out. You have to take the backs off of the cases or the charging stations, and you have to physically go in there and rip the charger out. So it's not easy to get the chargers out. So it would be a benefit if the students had a set to go home and come back and forth with. That's really what it is. It's more of a logistic issue, I guess, but it's difficult to get the chargers in and out of the charging stations.
So Eric, this is Bob. Sorry, I lost my internet again. I'm on the phone. And I got a good picture of this because this is what the one-to-one's all about. I think what we're saying here, though, is we're really taking the responsibility off the student to take their Chromebook home, which if we're going to use technology effectively, save paper, and if we do go to a different learning management system, let's say Schoology, which is all I'm all about, they're going to need the Chromebooks at home to communicate with a teacher overnight or classmates or whatever it may be, as you get up in years in instructional practices. 8th graders will be do some, peer editing. They'll be working on projects together in ways that, most of us never were educated. I've seen it firsthand. But then we're taking the responsibility away from the kids to make sure they come to school with their Chromebooks fully charged. And, I know when we ran the one-to-one at my middle school, it was their responsibility. And if it wasn't charged, then that they just couldn't participate. So it was part of them getting ready for school. And we basically would tell them, charge your laptop right next to your alarm clock. It's part of you getting ready for school each and every day. I understand the idea behind it, with younger kids. I'm not so sure we need 7th and 8th graders. I don't know. I mean, I lived it. I understand it. It does disrupt the educational process when a kid, we're using, let's say in learning circles, we're going to use a station, we're going to be using our Chromebooks in the classroom, and you don't have a kid who has a charged Chromebook. It's a pain in the butt. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the logistics of spending that amount of money for something that is really just responsibility of the students. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Some of those are valid points. Yeah, I was just looking at it more from a perspective of, trying to make things more functional in the classroom, trying to make it easier, I guess, is kind of where I was coming from.
Eric, I totally understand and I agree. I'm just looking at financially. I just think we need to make sure we're purchasing needs versus wants. That's all.
Eric, would it be feasible for us to continue to process this for a while, or at least through the next committee cycle? Let's go back. Let's get some more feedback from our staff and from our administration. We'll just kind of let this one cook a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do that.
I think that makes sense, Matt, because, you know, I have some concerns also. I think Bob has raised some, Donna. So, you know, I think we need more information before we can jump on this full speed ahead, unless I'm misreading the other board members. So, yeah, keep it on the fire, but I'm not sure we're ready to move ahead quite yet.
Yep. Okay. No, good comments. Thank you. Okay, and the final item I have today is the E-rate Category 1 update. We applied this year for E-rate funding Category 1. This is for our fiber connection from Slatington Elementary to Peters Elementary. And then we also have a connection from our Northern Lehigh School District from Slatington Elementary to the IU. This started way back in August. We applied for, we actually had to bid the connections, and we went through all that process, and then you have to fill out all your E-rate paperwork. It's a long process, but we finally received our funding commitment decision letters, and we are receiving funding for both of these connections. These connections are 5-year contracts. So the 5-year contract runs from July 2021 up until June 30th of 2026. So it's a 5-year contract. And we are going to receive funding of $7,948.80 for the connection from Slatington Elementary to Peters Elementary. That is for 2021-22. That is for this upcoming year. And we will receive funding of $5,670 from our Slatington Elementary main connection to Northern Lehigh to the IU. And again, that is for the 2021-22 year. The total is $13,618.80. Over the life of the 5-year contract, we will receive $68,094 over the 5-year period. Now, we do have to apply for this funding every year, so they guarantee that funding is for this year. But typically, after the first year, it's a formality because the contracts are already in place. Everything's already been approved by E-rate. So typically, every year in March, we just have to reapply for the funding. And again, typically on the Category 1 at this point forward, it's usually a formality. As long as the funding's there from the federal government for the program, we will likely get our funding. So just wanted to give everybody an update on that. You know, that was a long project, and I'm happy to have that over. And Mr. Link and I also submitted our 486 form. That is the form that tells E-rate that we comply with SIPA compliance and all that good stuff. So that was actually the final piece of the puzzle we had to submit, and that was done today. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on the E-rate funding.
I would say thank you, Eric, for doing that. Glad it's finally in place, and we have the money for the next couple of years. Any questions for Eric at this point in time? Greg, Matt, anyone? Anything else? If not, I would say we're finished here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And Eric, I believe you said earlier there are no community members that signed up to speak this evening on this committee. Is that still accurate?
You are correct. Yes, we have no questions, no comments, and we had nobody sign up to speak.
Okay, very good, Eric. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Green, we're ready to close that committee and roll into the Finance Committee. And Mrs. Culp, I'll ask you to open up the Finance Committee.
I saw cafeteria was the first item. Sue's not around.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sue was not able to join us this evening, so there will not be a cafeteria update.
Okay, that's fine. Rhonda?
Okay. Rhonda, you ready to navigate here?
Very good. It's already up.
All right, very good. So Sherry and I are going to take us through the most recent version of the proposed preliminary budget for the 21-22 school year. So Rhonda, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide. Thank you. Some of this is going to be very familiar with you because you've seen it 1 or 2 times already as we have gone through our budget planning process. As a reminder, here are some of the COVID-19 effects for the current year's budget. We have completed the first 3 grants there, and we're currently still working through ESSERS 2 and ESSERS 3, which we've discussed several times this evening. We would just like to point out that under ESSER 3, we are allowed to supplant. And also, it does require, though, that we spend almost $590,000 spent directly for addressing learning loss to be inclusive of some of our student groups that are most at risk. So some of this has to be directly spent on students with special needs, students in the English language development program, homeless students, foster students in foster care, which is all part of what we are targeting to do this summer. Other potential savings for this current year is substitutes. Again, we were down on day-to-day subs and permanent building subs. So, you know, kind of the good news is there, that is it saved us some money. Bad news there is that it has impacted us with our substitute pool. You know, we still continue to struggle to find subs, either day-to-day subs, or we still have some of our permanent building sub vacancies open. Not like any other district, but it's still a reality for us as well. And again, at the beginning of our Buildings, Grounds, and Technology Committee, Mrs. Wiegenfield shared with you the utility savings, and that was just through part of the year, the construction year, before all the construction was actually completed. And we've already saved, I believe it was a little over $80,000 due to electricity and fuel costs. Okay, Rhonda. And this is for you, Sherry.
Yep. So this you saw before. This is the Act 1 index. The IFO gave their projections in February of 2021. 21-22 school year was set at 3.4. Our adjusted index is 4%. We can raise taxes by. 22-23 is projected to be 4.2. It's projected to be 4.2 the following year, and then they're projecting it to start to decrease. And this is what they have been projecting is going to happen with COVID, that it's going to take a couple of years for it to catch up with what's actually happening out there in the workforce, because this does use SOL data in order to figure that out. And then the next issue is the PSERS rates. They will be updated in June. This is looking at last June's rates and where we stood. 2021 was supposed to be 34.95. The actual came in at 30.94. So 0.01% reduction. Woohoo. 22, 35.62, 23, 36.12, and you can see it continues to climb. So not sure where PSERS is going to end up through all this, but hopefully we'll end up seeing a point where it's going to downsize. I think it was supposed to start happening in the 25 or 26 school year. So I'll be interested to see when those June projections come out, what they're looking for next year. That's it. Rhonda, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Rhonda. Here, this is just our district profile. Nothing has changed here. We're still hovering right at about 80 students for kindergarten, although we're still expecting that number to climb back up to, you know, at least 100 students there. Everything else is kind of remained the same in that anticipated column at the end there. Okay, Rhonda. The employee profile, the slide has been updated. We thought it appropriate to have a line now titled ESSER funded staff. This would be additional staff going into the new year. So that's where you see the series of zeros because they have not yet existed. But we are continuing to recommend that we add 5 paras and 2 tech integration specialists to support our students and staff going into the new school year to be funded through ESSERS. Currently recommending administration to stay at 16 for a grand total of 255.5 employees. For next school year, again, the increases are to help address learning loss, and that would be funded through those ESSER grants. We would let those people know and continue to have conversations with those people that these are ESSER funded positions, and they could be either ended when those funds expire. There could be furloughs for those particular people, or if the board so supports and the value is so added that we want to continue with it, the possibility would be to continue those positions after ESSER funding is depleted.
So this screen you saw before, this slide, this is prior year's composites of data. So the red is the expenditures in the 18-19, 19-20, and 2021 school year. And the blue are the revenues received in that period of time, and then the use of fund balance at that point in time as well. So currently we are saying that we are going to have about $764,000 in additional revenues by the end of the year, and not need to use any of our fund balance in order to balance our budget. That will be determined as I continue to update my numbers and my calculations for where I think we're going to end with those expenditures at the end of the year. This slide will be updated once we do our June, so that you can get a better understanding of where we actually are anticipating being. Right now, those numbers are still very rough. But this is where we're anticipating we're probably going to see about $764,000 added to our fund balance. Sorry. And also at the bottom of that slide, sorry, 4% per, we passed the resolution in December that said we wouldn't raise taxes over 4% this school year. That is our maximum that we can raise it. We do not have to raise it to that, but that is the projected amount we can raise it to. We did not apply for those exceptions for special ed or PSERS, and with that increase of that $764,000, I'm anticipating fund balance to be somewhere around 10.5 at the end of the school year. So that would be June of 21. We will have somewhere around 10.5 in our fund balance. Now, Rhonda, sorry about that.
Okay, thank you both. The next series of slides is going to be a quick walk through the recommendations at each building level. These have not changed since the last time. So I'll give you an opportunity there, a minute, to look at the Peters Elementary recommendations: 2 additional support staff, relocate 1 professional staff position to Slatington Elementary School based on class size. These are recommendations that have been ongoing. We are also recommending no budgetary increases for materials or programs. And of course, we talked already about the playground equipment upgrades are desired, and administration has considered action to be funded through ESSER funds. We're hopeful to bring back, once we have a clearer picture on that, like Mr. Dura mentioned earlier this evening, that we'll bring back additional information in June. Slatington Elementary, nothing has changed since the last time we talked about recommendations for that building: 2 additional support staff. Those would be, just like the ones at Peters, funded through ESSERs. Relocate, and then this building would receive the professional support staff position from Peters Elementary based on class size. Really what we're talking about here is our current 2nd grade class, our rising 3rd graders. And then no budgetary increase for materials or programs. Middle school recommended action. This is the same, but we added 2 additional bullet points under reduction of 1 professional position. That was the English language development program / gifted position, which is going to be vacant due to retirement. We're realizing that we'll need to adjust responsibilities of the remaining staff to cover those programs. But this may also allow us to adjust specials in the middle school as well. We're still kind of playing through the specifics of that, but there's some potential there to expand special programs at the middle school with existing staff. No budgetary increases for materials or programs. And then at the high school, again, this is unchanged from the last time we took a look at it. And status quo for support staff and professional staff, no budgetary increases for materials or programs. We would like to highlight again, we thought maybe this deserved its own slide. For the next 3 years, we're saying we would like to carry forward those 5 additional paraeducators, 2 technology integration specialists. And of course, we continue to look at our staffing needs over these next few years and how ESSER funding may support that to see if any additional staffing adjustments may be needed at any level. Okay, Sherry.
So this is where our current cost drivers are coming from in our expenditures for this school year. So our salaries have increased $208,000. The original slide that you saw a couple of weeks ago was, I think, a little over 400 and some thousand. We did have those retirements that we did receive letters and were approved at the last board meeting. Those retirements have been adjusted in here, as well as the retirements that will be on the board agenda on Monday evening for approval as well. So retirement then only went up 131,000. I think that was a little over 200,000 last time. Medical, with now the new medical plan that we have put into place and moving all of our staff to PPO2, our medical increase went from, I believe that was somewhere over $100,000 down to $28,000. And then we have those charter school funding, $456,000. That's an increase, and I have the 1920 rates there compared to the 2021, what I'm anticipating us spending by the end of the school year. We are hoping next year that some of the kids who did opt to go to a charter school this year due to what was happening with COVID, that they will return next year. We are actively working to get some of those students back. So hopefully that comes and we will see a relief in some of this funding that we're paying out to charter schools. Technology, we are increasing that by 50,000. Remember, that's that money that we're building in every year, so that when we get to that point when we need to do the repurchase all new laptops for the high school, that the money is already built in there for that lease every year. And then LCTI is going up $75,000 this year, and again, that is due to the due to our premium, our share in there, and some of the new initiatives going on down there. They built some new labs and stuff, and of course, we all share in that cost. Cost reductions happening to our budget is that electricity, we've taken another $25,000 out of our electricity. It still seems to be running high. As you saw with Alyssa's presentation earlier, we saw like an $86,000 savings. So we did back that back by, I believe, 25 or 30 some thousand dollars last year, and we're taking another $25,000 off of that again this year. As Greg mentioned earlier, in buildings and grounds, our heating oils will come in on Friday, May 7th. So I could potentially reduce his budget slightly depending upon how the oil bids come in. And then we had a student that is no longer outplaced. He aged out, so that student, and I'm seeing a reduction in outplacements of $25,000. So that's the budget concerns right now, what's driving up our budget. Real estate costs, so this is the revenue side of things. So real estate tax collection last year, because of COVID, everybody had made the assumption that we were thinking people were gonna have a hard time paying their taxes. Were they gonna make it on time? And we all decided as a consortium in Lehigh County that we all really thought, to be cautious, we were going to reduce it. We reduced ours by 1%, taking it down from 93.75 down to 92.75. We actually did not see a reduction in our collection rate. Our collection rate came in exactly as is, 94%. So I am recommending that this year we bump it back up to the 93.75%. I will monitor it again this year and see if we still continue to receive a collection rate at the 94% or so, and may end up adjusting in that in future years. If we would decide to freeze our taxes and not do any kind of tax increase this year, the reduction in our revenue that we could receive in the 21-22 school year would be $679,000. So that's a decrease that we would end up not receiving. And again, as we often talk about, that's money on the table. So if that goes away, we can't ever recoup that. Per capita reinstatement to the 1920 rates. We did collect our per capita on Mark as well. Our EIT collections, I believe we reduced that by 15%. It is slightly down this year, but it's not down 15%. So I'm recommending that we take that back up to 10% again. Still reduction in those interest and investments, and that is because of the way the economy is right now in the market. There's no interest out there. So moving forward, though, as I said last time, NES was a good investment for us. I'm seeing a nice return every month on their interest. So I did build a little bit of interest in what we're going to see through our partnership now with NES. And state and federal revenues, I flat funded them because the scare is that they pretty much know that school districts have gotten, as you see with us, over $4 million in federal funding from ESSERS, that some of the budget may end up changing from the governor, and the fact that we will not be getting as much as what we wanted, or what he wanted us to have, let me phrase it that way. There wasn't huge support from one side of the legislation when he went out for his budget. So we knew he was going to get some kickback, and I think now with the amount of money that they know are going to school districts, I wouldn't be surprised if his budget is not going to be cut. And I think basic ed and special ed are probably going to take a hit, but we won't know that until probably well after our budget is passed, which is what stinks about this. You know, we all have to have our budgets passed by June 30th, but they also don't have to have, they have to have theirs passed by June 30th. But as you've seen in the past, they can go into July and August and still not pass a budget and no ramifications to them. So for right now, I'm cautious, and I do not have any of that increase built into our budget. Go ahead, Rhonda. All right, so where we currently stand. So this is our district expenses versus our revenues. So our total expenditure budget for next year is $33,796,908, and our revenues are at $33,024,460. So the budget shortfall currently right now that I'm looking at is $772,000. And remember, as I said, we can raise our taxes up by 4%. If we raise it to 4%, it's $679,000 we can get in revenues. We're short $93,000 then that we would need to use out of fund balance. But that is only if you decide as a board to raise taxes to the maximum amount we're allowed to raise taxes to. This is just a glimpse picture on what our expenditures look like through a bar graph. So as you can see, the first one all the way on your left is salaries, the blue one. The purple one is our benefits. The yellow one is medical, and the green is retirement. So you can see that if you would add all them together, you know, almost at 14 million in salaries, almost $1.5 million at benefits. Your retirement is up over 4 million. Your medical's a little over 2 million. We're looking at about 68% of our budget is fixed costs in our salaries and payrolls and benefits. And then the rest of those are there and where they all stand between our contracted services and purchase properties and so on. But that is what makes up our $33 million budget for next year. Rhonda? And this is our revenue side of things. So as always, as we always say, our local share is our highest share. We get a little over $18 million from our local. That is real estate, that is EIT collections, that is per capita collections, it's delinquent real estate. So it's a conglomerate of things. It's not just school district real estate. There is other taxes in there as well that we get. And then we have that state funding in there. We receive a little over $12 million in state funding every year, and then very little in federal, somewhere around $700,000 in federal, and then other in the fund balance. So I currently have put that $772,000 that we would be taking that out of fund balance to get me to the $33,796,000. That is not my recommendation at this point in time. I just wanted to show you what the pie graph would look like, the bar graph would look like if we actually had a balanced budget between revenues and expenditures. Go ahead, Rhonda. So what it looks like in the whole scheme of things is our ending fund balance July of 2020, well, to start July of 2020 was 9.7 million. We're anticipating ending June of this year at 10.5 million. So then I'm looking at what our 21-22 fund balance breakdown would look like. Keeping it into the realm of where we have ended June of 21. So in the yellow highlighted highlighted section, that is where we would be pulling fund balance money in order to offset some of the costs that are reoccurring costs that we have put in fund balance in order to, for these increases in our budget. So medical was $28,000. I took that out of our health insurance premium line. PCERS increases was $131,000. I took that out of our PCERS increase line under our committed fund balance. So we have $612,000 left. That is to balance the budget. So that will just come out of just anywhere else. I took some from technology, some from replacement equipment, some from long range maintenance. So I pulled a little bit out of all of that money that's sitting out there and used that to balance the budget at this point in time. So if we have to use all of the $772,000, this is what our ending fund balance will look like for June of 2021, of where we would have extra money. Go ahead, Rhonda. So again, the big picture, expenses 33.7 million. Our revenues are a little over 33 million. So my budget shortfall is $772,000. Again, PCERS, I'm recommending taking $131,000 out of fund balance in that committed line item for fund balance. Medical, I'm recommending taking out the $28,000 out of the medical line item. And then to balance the budget, we need that additional $612,000. And that we will take from a little bit from all of the areas still in our assigned fund balance area. Our ending fund balance for the 21-22 school year, if we utilize that $772,000, will be somewhere around 9.7 million. And that's based on the fact that we end this year at 10.5. So if 10.5 comes in a little bit higher, this 9.7 next year is going to be a little higher. If we come in a little less than 10.5 and my projections weren't right, that 9.7 is going to go down a little. So that's where we're looking at the big picture, where we would end the end of the 21-22 school year. Go ahead, Rhonda. And then potentially these, I just talked about these a little bit ago. This is the basic ed subsidy and the special education subsidy that the governor did have in his original budget. So we're looking at $116,000 that is not currently in our budget and $233,000 that's not currently in our budget, that if we get some kind of notice by the beginning of June that it looks like the budget is going to pass as is, I can put this money in our budget, and then we will be, we would take this away from that $772,000 shortfall. So we would be somewhere around $400,000 in a shortfall. Go ahead, Rhonda. Go ahead, Matt. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. So our administrative recommendations remain the same from the last time that we discussed this. We are still recommending to consider a tax increase in utilization of fund balance to generate some revenue for the upcoming year. We need to continue to work through our transportation subsidy. We want to preserve and maximize our subsidy for the 21-22 school year, and we're going through a process right now reviewing fixed costs with Brandywine Transportation for the current school year. And then also to continue to look for opportunities to decrease expenditures and or increase revenues as more information becomes available on ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding and some planning opportunities. And that concludes our presentation for this evening. Questions, thoughts? This will be on Monday evening's agenda. We will need the a vote on the proposed final budget Monday evening, but knowing that that can change between June and between May and the vote that needs to occur in June.
Correct. So what we will end up doing is approving, if with the board's permission, we will approve, just like we did last year, at the budget to be at the maximum for the 4% increase. And then in June, once we get our finalized numbers, then I will go to the board with the different percentage rates of what a 3% would look like, what a 3.5% would look like, what a 2%, for the board then to deliberate and decide how much of a tax increase they would like to make. Is everybody in agreement with that?
I think I'm in agreement because we know that's not where we need to end up. We just have to do this as a formal procedure for that. I can tell you I am not in favor of 4%, nowhere near a 4%, and I understand what you're saying. I'd also like to see a listing of the ESSER funds and where we are spending that money or what we have allocated towards those ESSER funds. Because I think it can help our district out and not put more burden on the taxpayer. That's my personal opinion. The other board members can share theirs, but I'm just looking to see where we're spending our money. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I'll give another few moments to see if any other board members would like to comment. If not, Mrs. Culp, we can move on to the other agenda items.
Nobody else have anything? Okay,
And I'm stalling because I closed that agenda by accident.
that's okay. It's the auxiliary salary schedule is next on the budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually going to pull the auxiliary salary schedule for tonight. This is where we approve our sub rates for our substitute teachers. And we actually did a call out to the IU who is doing a survey to find out what other school districts in our area are paying. Just wanted to see if we are in alignment with what other school districts in our area are paying. So that doesn't go into effect till August anyway, so I will probably have that on, definitely on the June board agenda, and I'll bring it to finance in June so we can discuss it and look at it at that point in time.
Okay, early in an update in February, you all received notice that our carrier for workers' compensation insurance was going to be sharing their reserve. They had obviously a series of good years, and they are sharing the wealth because of the way the program is set up that we have with them. They determine how much money they could distribute to the companies that work with them without endangering their operational funds. They then took a formula using longevity and claims experience to issue refunds to the people that buy their insurance through them. Oh, I'm having a terrible time here. Anyway, last Thursday, Northern Lehigh received $25,150 from SDIC, which was way more than I was anticipating. So that was, I was thinking maybe a tenth of that. So that was a pleasant surprise last Thursday. So that was unexpected income. So that will also help with fund balance this year. And then the next item that
Rhonda, before we go on, if I can just comment on that, I want to compliment you and Greg and everyone else involved in our safety review teams and ensuring that we are doing everything at each building to mitigate and minimize accidents to our employees. So kudos to all of you.
Okay, the next item that I have is about 2.5 years ago. Those of you that were on the board at the time remember the trouble that we were having with Alternative Benefit Systems, which was the provider for our flexible spending plan. At the time, the payments to our staff were very sporadic, and then eventually they stopped coming at all. Also, during that period of time, ABS had issued some bad checks to some of our employees. The board decided to make the employees whole, at which point we refunded the employees a little over $14,000. We did file an insurance claim, and our insurance company reimbursed us less our $1,000 deductible. On last Monday, I believe it was, Detective Mathias from the Berks County DA's office called me. She was the detective that I had been working with the criminal complaint. She told me that they had finished their investigation. they had checked ABS's business finances, and they found where nothing was used for anyone's personal gain. Therefore, the only thing they could charge the president of the company with was passing bad checks. Northern Lehigh's employees received about a little over $300 in bad checks. Her question was, did we want to pursue with the complaint, continue with the complaint, be part of the final complaint? After much discussion with administration, we decided not to pursue the complaint. On principle, I would have liked to, but the only thing we would have been able to recoup was the amount of the bad checks, which was a little over $300, which we would have had to return to our insurance company. There would be no recouping any of the money, that the $1,000 deductible, or any of the time or legal fees that was spent to bring this case together to file the criminal complaint to begin with. So with that being said, to recoup $300, we just felt that it wasn't worth the time and the effort at this point to do that. It was a very disappointing outcome. So we hope that the board understands and agrees with the decision that we made.
I agree with that 100%, Rhonda. Sometimes you have to just swallow your pride. You're calling the attorney for 2 hours and there goes your $300. So,
Exactly.
Wise decision. Yeah.
Okay, and then the final thing that I have is our student accident insurance renewal came through. The good news is there is no increase over 2021's rate. It is staying at $25,250. The amount offered to parents that want to purchase insurance for non-athletes, that also remained the same at $22 for school time, $88 for the 24-hour coverage. So that will be on Monday night's agenda for your approval. And that's all I have for this evening.
Anybody have anything else?
No, I just want to thank Rhonda and Sherry for great reports tonight. And as far as the budget goes, we need to come in high so that because we can't, once we put that out, we can't come up after that. We only can go down, and we know we're probably going to do that. But so I'm supportive of what's on the books right now.
Thank you. Matt, any comments?
I'm just going to do one last check. Mr. Hill, no one signed up for this committee. No community member signed up for this committee either?
No, and we do not have any questions or comments.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
That's it, Mrs. Culp.
Okay. Thanks everybody for your participation, and have a nice rest of your evening. The sun is shining now, so
It still is, yes.
it came back again. It's been great. Great. We'll talk to everybody Monday. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Stay well, everyone.